You either live by the gun or you die by the sword.
Welcome to The Good, the Bad, and the Weird. I'm Nicho.
And I'm Chris. Hey, Nicho.
Yeah.
What's the movie with the worst name that you could possibly try and do research on?
Something that aligns with adult entertainment.
Very strongly. And also stars Vin Diesel.
Yes, who I'm sure a lot of people wish starred in adult entertainment.
Yep. This week, we watched ExXxtreme, the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doing research on this one was rough.
I didn't have too much of a hard time on it. I just had to time.
No.
No.
There was just a lot of 2002, the movie, starring Vin Diesel at the end of all of my searches.
I learned very quickly because I did type in XXX to begin with.
Uh-huh.
You have to do it stylized like they do it, or do XXX or XXX the movie specifically.
Yep. And just hope for the best when you push enter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The moment I hit enter, I'm like, oh, yeah, I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah. They milked that gag for all that it was worth, and it's still going all these years later.
Yeah. Do you know where they got the name for the movie, or?
No, I have no idea, and it's always bothered me a little bit, because I love this film franchise. Mm-hmm. All three movies. I especially love the third one, because it is the worst. Which is saying something, because none of them are good. But there's not a lot from movie to movie that truly, like, ties this whole series together. Minus the XXX, a couple of costume choices, Vin Diesel's face, and then, like, the overarching concept of spies. Okay. That's kind of it. So, like, why XXX? Is it just, like, someone thought that was funny? I don't know.
Because it's extreme.
This movie is extreme.
Yeah, no, I actually had never seen this movie until until we decided to do XXX.
You want to watch all the Nick Cage films.
Yes.
I will get you to watch all the Vin Diesel films slowly but surely.
But yeah, I mean, I knew of this movie. I'd seen only one scene from it, like when I was, like, it was on Spike TV at one time.
I think it ran a lot on Spike TV.
Yeah, and so it was just like one of those things flipping through. It's like, okay, scene's over. I'm going to move on to something else.
Fair. That's a fair assessment of this movie.
To be fair, I was also, like, in middle school when I was seeing it, so.
And the other thing about XXX is definitely mentally and, like, written for, like, the extreme monster trucks, raw gasoline sort of mindset, which most of us hit at the age of 13, and yet this film, our parents, for a lot of us, would not have let us see that age. And so a lot of us grew out of this sort of movie thing. I grew into it. This is now my jam. I am a 13-year-old boy.
Well, I think probably part of the reason we didn't see it is because when we were in Germany, my mom accidentally rented The Fast and the Furious.
Which is a very similar to this movie.
Same director.
Same director. Vin Diesel's also in the first Fast and the Furious.
Yep. And
then somebody else also worked on it. I can't remember who. Someone in the writing team, I think, also worked on Fast and the Furious.
I didn't do too much looking into it. Again,
this is all just me loving Fast and the Furious.
I know. I am aware of your, Erica, and Crystal's love for that film franchise.
Okay. There's no scientific backing to this, but I have observed over the years that the people who love the Fast and the Furious, the XXX, the Riddick series, like all of these, mostly Vin Diesel films, love them not for Vin Diesel himself, don't get me wrong. Great actor for what he does. Fantastic, good one-line delivery. Mm-hmm. I'm not here for him. I'm here for the motorcycle stunts. Oh, and most of the people I talk to who love this franchise are also ladies who normally do not associate with this sort of behavior. But This is my favorite franchise.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's got their own little guilty pleasure. Like, I personally like the of Vin Diesel's movies that I've seen. I like the Pitch Black.
Pitch Black is a fantastic, probably the better of the Riddicks, I would say.
Well,
it's probably the most thought through.
Because, honestly, the Riddick franchise, Pitch Black was a standalone horror sci-fi movie. It wasn't supposed to have a sequel, but they left such an open ending, and people wanted to know more about the world.
And unlike all my other movies, that one got a sequel, and a third movie, and an animated short.
Yep.
you know, why not Van Helsing? Come on. Soon, hopefully.
Well, we are getting the
Big
one with Momoa and Peter Dinklage.
Which I have hopes for.
I do too. I like both of them.
I do too.
So,
but back to Vin Diesel.
Yes. Well, before we get into Vin Diesel, what extreme drink do we have today, Chris?
Well, the movie itself only really has one true drink other than beer, which we kind of ignore unless it's like a predominant figure, because beer is in all action movies. There is one scene where someone gets to drink a very small glass of absinthe with just a spoon of sugar melted into it like it's drugs, and then pour it in. No, we said no to that. That looks terrible.
Well,
I have to work tomorrow.
I do have to work tomorrow as well, but...
So instead, we have some Red Bull with vodka put in it.
Yes.
Because that is extreme.
So extreme.
We also couldn't get a hold of the... I think it's actually called ExXxtreme energy drink. Couldn't get that.
Yeah, and I'm banned from Death Cups, so...
Fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this'll do.
Prost.
Prost. Tastes like sad Jolly Ranchers.
Yeah, I forget how much I'm not a huge fan of Red Bull. But yeah, so to be fair, absinthe, that is kind of how you drink it.
Yeah, but...
And I have absinthe, but I don't have the spoon.
No, and also, like, normally there's a little bit more elegance and grace associated with absinthe instead of taking a normal teaspoon and a lighter and melting some sugar in a teaspoon and then dumping it in there. Also, as a cook...
It's very close to what you normally do with absinthe anyways.
Yeah, I will say, though, as a cook, the amount of time that lighter spent next to that sugar, that didn't do anything. It, like, mildly warmed the sugar.
Yeah, so, anywho, back into XXX, the movie.
Yes.
I don't know. It was an interesting experience for me going into it. As you know, action isn't normally my forte or like my normal pick.
Yep. And I would argue that this action is kind of the most stereotypical action film that one can get.
It's extreme.
It's extreme in every sense of the word.
Yeah, and normally, like, I do prefer Hitchcock-style spy movies.
Yeah.
I'm not the biggest fan of James Bond, which, having finished the entire collection, I mean, they're fine, but they're not my favorite. But what I like about how this movie actually starts off is it's the director's killing of the classic spy.
Yeah.
How he referred to it is... Rob Cohen called it, the tuxedo killed him. Yes.
And granted, to give XXX a little bit of credit where credit's due, the root concept of this movie is really cool. Like, the idea of having, like, a Suicide Squad style spy team that, like, are gutsy and ballsy because they learn their skills on the streets as opposed to being formally trained agents. Yeah. That's kind of cool. I mean, we lose that, but...
Yeah, well, Cohen was trying to blend the world of spies and extreme sports. That's why Tony Hawk's actually in this movie.
Not just Tony Hawk.
There's a handful of other extreme sports cyclists and other people that I don't know.
If you ever get bored, a couple of them have some really cool runs that you can watch on YouTube where there's some very fancy tricks. Again, though... This is the 13-year-old boy in me who's, like, spends their weekend watching BMX stunts and, like, who can do the most backflips.
Oh, yeah, and I mean, I watch stuff with my brother. Like, we used to watch some of the X Games and whatnot when we could.
This is very much in the same genre of audience as the X Games.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think it is quite an interesting opening just because... one, we have a spot. It's a very classic scene. There's a spy going after someone with data.
Yep.
Or something that he's trying to get. Some device. And he's dressed up. He's classy. He's looking very James Bond.
And I do like that.
And he's British.
And I also like that they went ahead and put us in a very European-looking place. Like, the setting's not New York City or, like, Kansas. Like, they went full balls to the wall here. Yeah. They even And this is something that a lot of people who watch this movie the first time criticizes. He even does the whole trope where he takes his mask off right away because he's the main character. Mm-hmm. He's going to get away with it. He's changing into his tux. And honestly, like, none of it mattered because he just gets gunned down.
Yep. Well, and then on top of that, he bursts into a Rammstein concert.
Which, I'm so proud of my husband. The music started playing and he actually recognized it.
Du hast mich.
Yeah.
But
there's also, if you're a fan of them, they have a camera on their side, mm-hmm. and in one of their compilation videos, you can see what they see while this is being filmed.
Oh, so they can see like all the cameras and everything behind it.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool little take if you feel like watching it from their point of view.
Yeah, no, and I honestly, of spy openings that I've seen, it definitely starts off with like, okay, it's mystery, mm-hmm. but we're also introduced to the villains right from the get-go because they're in the balcony watching the concert.
Yeah, which I like. I like them. I like to know who to hate.
Well, and on top of that, they're not like what we normally expect to be like from a stereotypical spy villain. Yeah. He's more.
He's a little more hands-on than I think most, at least Bond villains usually
more
are.
hands-on and a lot grungier.
Oh, yeah, most. Definitely.
And even, like, comparatively to Samuel L. Jackson's character in The Kingsman.
Oh, yeah, that's a good comparison.
Where he's very much the hipster villain.
Yeah, and I like Samuel L. Jackson in this movie. This is kind of one of his bread and butter roles. It's mm-hmm. not diverging too far from a lot of other things, like Kingsman. I like this one, though, because he's super uninteresting as far as like a character design goes.
Yeah.
He interacts really nicely with the other characters because of that. Because again, if he had been the hipster version like he is in Kingsman, it would have just been weird.
Yeah, and even then, I don't think he's necessarily an antagonist in this. He's just kind of...
He's just moving pieces along as needed.
He's antagonistic, but he's not truly an antagonist. He's kind of like the guardian force, or the guy. He's kind of the guidance that Vin Diesel's character Xander Cage needs.
Yeah, and the other reason why I like him in this role and mm-hmm. this character is because this is one of the only characters that does transfer nicely between all three films. Because he's kind of a generic guy, so it works.
Head of New Central Intelligence trying to do an experimental...
Yeah.
Oh, God. I just mentally in my head, because I watched it a couple weeks ago, I mentally compared him to Zach Galifianakis in G-Force.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's the same vibe.
No, it's not. No, it's not at all. God damn, I hate that.
I received many text messages when you watched that movie.
I have no clue how that movie got made. It's so... It's special. Yes, it is. That's another topic for another movie. But yeah, before we get into Nick Cage, or...
Not Nick Cage. The other Cage.
The other Cage, Xander. Before we get into more of the movie, I want to talk about how we're introduced to Xander Cage as well.
Yes.
There's a thing that Cohen liked to play with. Where every time there's like a real transition from settings, there's a close-up on the tattoo on the back of his neck.
They got every penny out of that fake tattoo.
Oh, yeah.
Which, again, it's one of the only tropes that truly makes it through all three movies. Does the the hard stick to that rule stick to the other two movies? No, but you do see it a lot more than is necessary.
No, but if I remember, I don't think Cohen directed the other two movies.
No, but there's a lot of tropes that, like, he embedded into this movie mm-hmm. that it just wouldn't be XXX without.
Yeah, I also do want to say Rob Cohen does a great not narration, commentary over the DVD, which... If you really want to know how impressive this movie actually is, because I went into it and I watched it and I'm like, okay, it's an action movie. It's Vin Diesel. They're trying to be more up to date, up and up, especially with the whole video games cause violence kind of issue.
Yeah, there's definitely like a couple of parts that are political for the time period. At the time period, that was an issue.
Yes.
Not anymore. We don't care. We got problems.
I will say, if you do get a chance, listen to his commentary on the movie because he gives you almost step by step on what his process was for this.
Yeah, like there's more thought put into this movie than it surface level looks.
Yeah. And so when we're introduced to Xander, he steals a congressman's super fancy car.
I do have an issue with this super fancy car.
Okay.
So, first off, I'd like to applaud whoever thought to put the license plate on this car. Did you read the license plate?
I know there's a reference to it, but I can't think of it off the top of my head.
His license plate says, vote for Dick.
Right.
Because his name is Dick. So, first off, props to that. Beautiful detail. I love it. Second, my only true complaint with this movie, I guess you could say, is he has a giant bumper sticker on this incredibly fancy and expensive car, which has a license plate telling people to vote for him. Why? I don't even care that the sticker is, like, supposed to help, like, you understand what, like, sort of person this is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care. Who puts a bumper sticker like that on their ritzy, expensive car that they don't even want to be put out in the sun?
Well...
Who does this? What sort of human? Apparently Dick.
Dick puts it on his car. And so Xander steals his car.
Yep.
Is driving along, stops at a pit stop of some sort.
He's got a rendezvous spot so that all of his buddies can hook up the cameras and stuff to the car.
Yeah, because he's hijacking this for a political message.
Slash what is kind of like old school YouTube, it looks like.
Yeah.
God bless it.
I don't know. For me, I feel that's kind of refreshing just because what YouTube has become.
Oh, yeah, no, it definitely brought me back. And, like, at no point do they call it that. They say they have an underground website. And, like, that brought me back to the days of, like, when it was cool to have your own website.
Yeah, well, I mean, think of it. This movie came out in 2002.
Oh, yeah.
We're 2 years after Y2K when home computers were starting to become way more common because people weren't as afraid of them anymore.
Are you kidding? I was, like, required to make my own webpage in, like, I think elementary or middle school, and the only thing I could put on there was the link to the M&M's website. But, like straight...
The candy?
Yeah.
Huh.
They had a game. It was the only thing that worked on the school computer. But, like, the idea of having, like, my own website, and it'd be all, like, black, and it'd be cool, and there'd be neon font, like, that registered with me. I was that person.
It's the conspiracy websites that are still active today with the green text, red, black background.
Yeah, it makes it really hard to read.
The good old days of MySpace.
This is very much in the, like, this vibes MySpace real hard, because not only that, seeing the boxes they put the cameras in kind of cracked me up because nowadays, like, probably wouldn't need that big a box. Like, if your GoPro doesn't survive that fall on its own, which it might, just put it in the little plastic case and glue it on the car and call it a day.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know, vlog with your phone like everyone else.
I mean, nowadays.
So the cameras and like, the references definitely...
Yeah.
I don't know, they help make this movie special.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I mean, that's kind of how they help establish Xander is he's an extreme sports character. He's an adrenaline junkie. And on top of that, he's also kind of an early gamer. Yeah. Because he talks about how part of the reason he's stealing the car is because the guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Yeah. Video games don't cause violence. Yeah. And... I mean, he is right in that, but this is just coming off of when we started getting parental advisory and...
Yeah, and, I mean, a little bit before this, there were a couple of scares that were attributed to a video game or two at the time, which did cause a lot of people to be concerned.
Specifically, Columbine, which I learned 4/20 is the date of Columbine. Also the Weed Holiday.
Weed Holiday.
And Hitler's birthday.
You know, let's go with Weed Holiday.
Yeah.
I like that one best.
I didn't realize that up until like a week or two ago. But yeah, so Xander takes the car, he gives his political message. Yep. And he says, "Don't be a dick."
and then he gives the first truly terrible line of the movie, which is, "Welcome to the Xander Zone." Which oh, it's bad.
This movie is steeped in early 2000s one-liners.
Oh, it's mostly one-liners strung together with other one-liners, and I live for it. And so Then we get an actually pretty cool stunt scene where the car is jumped off of a bridge and he then jumps out of the car that's falling and parachutes to the ground.
Yep.
This stunt is really cool and kind of sets the tone.
And on top of that, that was done with one take.
Yep.
18 cameras.
Might as well cover all your goats.
Had never been done before, and Cohen didn't want to do the stunt again, so that's why he did it all in one go. And so Xander's rescued by his group of underground
posse,
adrenaline junkies, and Tony Hawk.
Yeah. And, there's a lot... this scene right here kind of sets you up for the whole movie. You know what sort of stunts you're getting into, because this stunt, while super cool and super extreme, I wouldn't even necessarily say is the most extreme stunt in the movie.
No,
it definitely is from like a stuntman's technical aspect.
Yeah,
point, but from a viewer's standpoint, there's others in the movie that make a bigger impact.
Yeah, and I'll get into that a little bit more towards the end of the film because this was a stunt movie, and there's a couple of stunts that just need to be discussed. Yeah, and I kind of want to talk about Cohen's style of filming this too. What did he refer to it as? I think he referred to it as...
That's a weird name.
Yes, that is exactly what he referred to it as. Damn, I wrote it down somewhere. Anyway, we'll get to it in a minute. But basically his style of filming for a lot of the action scenes, I think... Goddamn. I wrote it down. I know I wrote it down. It's kind of like a Picasso style of editing where it's the same set of sequences, but instead of all like being one picture, it's taken from different angles that are melded and shot together and re-edited to feel duplicated. And
there's one specific stunt that shows this technique off really nicely, much farther in the film with an avalanche, which I think that one shows it off almost too well. Most of the stunts this style, you don't really notice it. It just feels super intense. That one, it gives you enough moments to go, what are we doing here? But for the most part, it works really well to kind of keep the action really high strung, even after, like, example, the cars hit the bottom of the cliff.
Yeah, and... it's definitely an interesting style, and like when I started actually hearing him discuss how his approach to making an action movie, I've actually somewhat started to appreciate action movies more so than what I previously thought.
There's still what they are.
But there's at least there's some more thought brought into the method of making it
for some of them. And
honestly, because of this movie, I am somewhat interested in watching at least the first Fast and the Furious movie.
That's probably the most pristine, clean version.
Yeah. And so from jumping off the cliff with car, he's brought to his secret lair.
His house is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. I love it, don't get me wrong. But it's the most cliche house I've ever looked at.
See, I don't know if it's a house. I think it's like his bunker, like how Rob Dyrdek had the Fantasy Factory.
I see where you're coming from, but I read it as what's the Nick Cage film where Ghost Rider? I read it as the same hotel / apartment from that movie, because it's got the stupid elevator that you have to use to get in and out.
Oh, yeah.
It's way too big for one person to live here. It's got a weird second level that's not really a second level. What's this kitchen over here doing? And why is there a skateboard ramp in the house? That's how I read it.
'Cause it's extreme.
Yeah. So, is it probably supposed to be more like his hangout pad? Probably. But in my mind, he lives here. Because he just sleeps on the couch.
Okay, I can see that. Side tangent. I was watching an old German movie, and I forgot how terrifying old elevators used to be.
I haven't. We had one in Kansas City that I needed to get to for some after-school clubs, and oh boy, nothing makes you appreciate modern technology quite as much as an old
elevator.
Yeah,
no, it's... That's another tangent.
That's an architecture tangent.
Yes. I mean, we're ranting about his stupid lair as well.
I have many things to say about the architecture in this movie, as I do with most action films. That's part of the reason I like action films, is the background sets and the general destruction of priceless architecture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one, not so much when the government comes in, which I love this because they act like they're so underground and so hidden, and the government just, boom.
Just lights them up.
Surprise, motherfucker.
Yeah. I also appreciate this movie's dedication to the getting bumped on the head and being knocked out gag. Like, within the first couple minutes of the movie, our boy Xander is knocked out like 4 or 5 times. Mm-hmm. This has got to be permanent damage at this point.
Well, I don't know about that because, I mean, we trank animals.
This is true.
Because he doesn't get bonked out, he gets tranked. For
at least one of them. He gets just hit over the head a couple times.
Yeah, when he gets to the cartels, when he gets hit over the head. But when
he takes
the government's involved.
Yeah, it takes a beating.
Yeah, and so, again, we're treated to that tattoo on the back of his head. Back of his neck.
Back of the neck.
And,
I like this next scene with the diner a lot. Mm-hmm. So, at this point, we've got to make sure that this is the right guy for the job. Got to make sure he's not too crazy.
Yeah.
So, they set up a fake diner heist, which I like this part because they acknowledge all of the dumb tropes that normally go into an action and spy movie. Mm-hmm. And then they immediately forget that this scene happened and just kind of like continue on with all the tropes.
Oh yeah, exactly. Well, and that's the thing I think about this movie is that it's
very self-aware.
Exactly. But it's not too self-aware where it's on like the level of Monty Python.
No. Yeah. It's not making fun of itself. It just knows what itself is.
Exactly. It's kind of like Con Air.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what I like about this scene too is Cohen talks about it a little bit, is he purposely misdirects people in his filming of it, is that when the waitress is walking away, Vin Diesel looks down and you're thinking, okay, he's kind of a pig. He's checking out this woman. He's like, why is he working here? And he's like, no, that's a misdirection. You're supposed to focus on the shoes.
Yeah.
Kind of like, it's one of those weird things in like movies where, like, I've talked about it previously with you and everyone else, where if I have the theory, if there's too much emphasis on the dog is going to die.
Yeah, that's a good comparison.
Exactly.
Yeah. You're supposed to get interested or attached to a thing, and then, oh no, the thing that you didn't think possible happens.
Yeah.
I like that this trope, and they take it to more than that, because they give acknowledgement to the terrible acting throughout the whole movie. Whereas in this scene particularly, part of him recognizing that this is all just one big gag and a test and not real is the terrible acting from the background people.
Yeah. Which
I like a lot.
Because they're agents.
They're agents, and I don't know. He walks it through a lot like how you or I or other internet reviewers look at a movie with sometimes unnecessary pickiness. And I like this whole scene. I kind of wish that this level of detail from Xander himself kind of continued more in the movie. But it wouldn't have been quite as much action-packed then.
No, and I think it is... I think the reason we slow down a little bit here is, one, if it was like that throughout, it would feel very much like Guy Ritchie's Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, for sure.
But I think part of the reason we're doing this too is not only we've established he's a badass, he's an action hero, he has the credentials to be an action hero. He's not an idiot.
Yeah, he's also smart, which helps a lot.
That's the point of this scene, is to establish he has street smarts. Exactly.
Ah, yes.
Exactly. And so after all this, we get introduced to Samuel L. Jackson, as Cohen compares it. The King of Cool versus the Prince of Cool.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Exactly. Yeah. And honestly, I love Samuel L. Jackson in this movie too.
I, in general, love Samuel L. Jackson in any role he plays. I like this one a lot too, because he doesn't get a ton of screen time, but he does leave an impression for the whole movie. Mm-hmm.
And also we have, as Cohen talked about it, there's this theme that he's developing that Xander punishes those who are arrogant towards him.
Yeah.
One, the agent with the shotgun.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Exactly. And so, from this, he's tranked again.
Lots of unconscious time.
He wakes up in a plane.
He does. I also like this part, because it continues to show that, like, he's supposed to feel like he's always in control.
Mm-hmm.
Because we don't really get an out-of-control Xander much in this film. He's at least always one step ahead of the game.
One step ahead of the game, and even then, I don't consider him ever out of control, just because I don't think we've ever... Well, scratch that. We have had spy movies where they are out of control, but those are like the Bourne Supremacy series, where James Bond or Xander Cage is out of control, he just ignored orders and did whatever he wanted to do, instead of like someone who's actively almost a terrorist.
Yeah, no. He's just not controlling the situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Is what I mean.
He's just going with the flow of things. He's being very Bruce Lee, like water.
Yes. And the reason I like this little, I don't know, I guess I'd call it a character development, is because right at this point, he's decided, like, he's not going to try. He doesn't want to participate, so he's going to play limp fish and call it a day. And eventually get sent home for just being useless. Yeah. Which, the way the movie goes, the fact that they managed to, I don't know, reverse psychology him the whole way through the movie to get him to do what they want, even though eventually he knows what's going on.
See, I don't agree with the reverse psychology. Basically, they've said he's going to either go to jail for life, or he's going to...
It starts out that way. And then eventually it gets to, are you going to jump off the Eiffel Tower if I tell you not to?
Well, I don't even think that. I think it's just he gets emotionally involved in everything that's going on. Yes. And that's his key character, is he's a badass, but he has a heart of gold.
True. Very true.
And I think that's what starts to really set this movie apart, is that he does care, and that we actually have that really start to develop in the next scene as well, because once they're dropped off, he's like, woo, I'm so excited for this. And then
I live for this shit.
Exactly. Can we do that again?
Yeah.
Another one, please. And so he's dropped off with what I referred to as not Vin Diesel and the man with hair.
The man with hair. Yes, that is an accurate character description.
Yes. So he's dropped off with two other candidates, and they get dropped into a cocaine field. Yes. Or a coca field. I don't know.
I like coca field. That's hilarious.
Yeah. And so they accidentally get involved with an actual cartel. Yes. And they all think it's a joke because the last set of training has been a joke.
Yeah. And, in somewhat of their defense, the scene looks and feels very much as dumb as the last one. Mm-hmm. Every person there looks as cartoony as possible.
And who did they cast as the head of the cartel?
The guy who plays the head of every cartel.
Oh, Danny Trejo.
Bless him. He is always a treat to have on screen.
Oh, I love Danny Trejo. I love him in Spy Kids. Yes. I love him in Machete.
I like how Spy Kids is at the top of his resume. I'm sorry, man. You're better than that, but also, you did great. It was fantastic.
Hey, it led to Machete.
You made that movie for us. But yeah, no, he makes an appearance in this, and he's playing the most stereotypical role you can think for him.
Exactly.
And on top of that, all of his henchmen also look like someone straight up wrote them into this scene, as opposed to them being natural characters.
Exactly. And so Xander and the two wannabes are goading him on, saying, you're not gonna do shit, you can't do anything,
you won't touch me.
Yeah. And then they realize pretty quickly that he's actually going to kill us. Yes. And then that's when good old USA comes in.
No, I think it's the Colombian police that come in first.
I think it's a joint task force.
It's probably a joint task force. But the next couple of minutes are just explosions and people being very bad at aiming their guns.
Bad at aiming guns and motorcycle chases.
And it's and to be fair, for what it is, it's a pretty cool motorcycle chase.
Oh no,
I do question why that barn was made out of explosive nails.
Well,
but
I'll talk about that in a minute. What I actually really like about this scene is, like I mentioned earlier, is this is when we really start to have compassion for Xander.
Yeah.
And where we see he has the heart of gold.
Yeah,
because,
he's not just all talk.
Yeah, like he's trying to get out, but he starts off by getting on the motorcycle, basically scoping the area and figuring out what he can do. While one of the guys is injured hiding, one of the guys got shot down immediately.
I mean, he was carrying a pillow of cocaine, so, he was definitely going to die.
He wasn't a good guy. And that's the other thing, too, that they establish is when they're fleeing is Xander is just worried about getting out, but he's also worried about getting this other guy out too. And I honestly feel bad for him a little bit because he goes back to save him. Yeah. And he's dead in the field. Yeah. And this, of course, this is after the barn explosion, which is a dope scene.
It is so cool. I have questions upon the flammability of this barn. It was a very big explosion for a barn that I'm not convinced should have gone as boom as that, but I love it.
It's Hollywood.
I told my husband that definitely that this construction was made out of explosive nails, and that's why this happened. You gotta be really careful about what nail you buy and build your barns out of.
My excuse is they were storing ammo in there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, maybe. They've got pillows of cocaine. Why not?
Exactly. But also, we also get to see that style of filming action that Coen does. Especially when he's doing... Because he actually incorporated X Games moves into it when he goes through the barbed wire fence. Yeah. And then kicks the dude in the face.
Yes. The kicking dude in face... The leg to man face interaction... Not necessarily how physics work, but I like the concept.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fun.
And I think this is a nice example of how the action just kind of keeps building because of how this was all shot and put together. Whereas if it had just been like one big shot, like some action films have done, it kind of, you start getting tired. This one, you constantly feel like, oh, we're still going. It doesn't get you tired as fast.
I will agree with that. I do feel it was a bit long.
It's a little long.
It's a long scene.
It's a little long.
To be fair, we hadn't really had any action since he stole the car.
Yeah.
So, pacing-wise, it makes sense to add this big scene into it to also exemplify not only can he drive cars well and he does base jumping, he also can do motorcycles. Yeah. And so, after he goes back to check on the one dude who died, he's immediately surrounded by people wearing plants and black.
I love the plant people.
I do too.
Our plant military.
Oh, yes. Actually, I do kind of want to go back a quick second to that jump over the explosive barn.
Oh, yes.
Because that is a dope scene. They had one shot for that, too.
It is a really cool scene.
And so everything else besides the takeoff and landing ramp are solid in that. So that way everything else around him can explode. And on top of that, the guy who did the stunt was like almost didn't make it. Ooh. If you watch the footage of it, he is real close to the explosion, like especially when he's landing. Yeah. Like, it's just that fraction of a second. And I have so much respect for all these stunt doubles. And I think that's part of the reason why a lot of our generation growing up has respect for a lot of these martial arts films because they were actually doing their stunts, like Jackie Chan.
Yeah, no, Jackie Chan was the one who originally got me into stunt stuff because he had a whole special, I think, showing how he like jumped off of a roof and fell through awnings at one point. And I remember seeing that and like that's when it clicked to me that like someone actually has to do this.
Oh, I think I know which movie you're talking about. The one where he, like, fell down and broke his arm? Yeah. Yeah.
And, like, he walked through how the stunt was supposed to go at some point and, like, showed it off. And that was when it clicked to me that, like, for the most part, these stunts are done by somebody. Yeah. And granted, maybe there's, like, a little bit more safety precautions here or there. But for the most part, these are actually dangerous and really, like, talented stunts. And it makes it, like, having that knowledge and knowing how they do it makes watching the movie like that much more exciting. I don't know.
No, I don't know. It's one of those things that's important to like really appreciate, I think.
I think it's the same as with like the horror genre people who like know how special effects work and how special effects makeup works, and that makes the movie that much cooler, knowing the effort that went into that monster or that like scar or stab scene.
Yeah, it makes me think of in Maniac with Elijah Wood when he splashes the water on his face and he looks up in the mirror and it's like, oh shit, that is it's a simple technique, but it's so effective.
Yeah, this is the same thing, but with explosions.
Yeah, exactly.
And like a really talented stunt guy.
And interesting editing.
Yeah, which helps a lot.
So anyway, back to the movie. After this, Samuel L. Jackson's character comes. Like, I don't even know his character's name.
I just call him Samuel L. Jackson in every movie he's in. I'm sorry. That's just how it is.
And so he comes back, and they're having this back and forth banter of just how they're going to get him into it. Like, hey, you've passed, but you have to do this for us if you want to be free.
Yeah. There's some bartering happening.
Exactly, and Cohen used some interesting camera work in this scene too. And I've really tried to pay attention to stuff like this. I think I actually shortly after this was watching Get Out.
Oh, that's a good one.
And the way he explains the filming of this reminds me of the scene where the main character in Get Out comes across his cell phone unplugged. Yeah. And the maid's just face keeps becoming more and more the focus of the frame and more enlarged.
Yes.
That's exactly what he does in this scene where, he just pulled off this badass thing. And, okay, here's the pencil pusher telling him what to do. But slowly Samuel L. Jackson's character is transitioned to be sitting above him. Yeah. And it's just, it's the little subtle things that's really cool.
Yes.
And I've tried paying so much more attention to this because I was talking to my mom about Eyes Wide Shut recently. Good one. And there was this great scene because I was talking to her about how the older man in one of the scenes went to film it, and he's like, okay, it's a little 10-minute scene. It's going to take us a day or two. And it ended up taking like 2 weeks to film.
Sounds like one of my projects at work.
It's Stanley Kubrick, though. So he had never worked with him before. But like I was rewatching it with my mom, just telling her about the scene, and there were so many little things of like the paintings just all meticulously focusing in on Tom Cruise, and it's like,
it's a lot of details that it does make a difference, even if you don't know it. Yeah. It does make a big difference, but knowing it makes, I don't know, it makes more of an impact, for me anyway.
Yeah, and I think, honestly, that so far, just knowing that, like, because I watched XXX originally without any knowledge going in.
I think that's the way it was probably meant to be watched.
Exactly. And so, to give a little bit of background of how I go, my process for reviewing films, especially for this podcast, is I'll watch the film. If it's one I haven't seen before or haven't seen in a long time, I'll watch it by itself. Then I'll watch it with commentary, and then I'll rewatch it again without the commentary. Yeah. And just going back and trying to pick out the little pieces here and there. Yeah. And I don't know, it just makes, knowing that little stuff is there is what sets the movie apart from a generic horror, or not horror, generic action film.
Yeah, very fair.
So, anywho, another little side tangent there. So, going back into the movie, he gets darted again?
I don't remember at this point. He just has a lot of head trauma and a lot of drugs. And
the drugs.
And at some points, he's just not conscious because it's convenient.
Yeah.
Which, it's an action film, and this movie does play off of the dumb action tropes, and this is one of them. Being unconscious for sit change is one of the tropes for action film.
And wake up in motherland, Russia.
We wake up, I think, in Prague?
I think it's Prague.
I think we wake up in Prague. I think the rest of the movie is filmed in Prague and is meant to be in Prague. Yeah. Which I like, because Prague is one of those places that a lot of spy films have played off of in the past.
Oh, Prague's beautiful.
It's gorgeous. And so what better place to completely destroy some architecture?
Exactly. So he wakes up. We're introduced to a greasy
it's
Russian
He's a very slimy man.
Which I learned they applied glycerin to his skin to make him feel oily. Oily, greasy, and gave him purposely bad clothes to make him feel like, yeah, he's a cop, but he's kind of a Weasley shitty cop.
Yes, and when you say bad clothes, we should clarify. All of the clothes in this film are terrible. There's only one piece of clothing that's even remotely, like, iconic, and it's Xander's own coat. The, like, nasty sheep skin fur thing.
Which
I love the coats in this movie because they feel like they're definitely all purposeful. All of them are, to an extent, representing the character, but it's an action film, so black tank tops and baggy pants or like tight pencil skirts and leather are kind of the standard.
Well, and I think that's one thing that actually sets the movie apart too, is that it is a more grungy. It's a more actual underground film. Like,
yes.
Because if you imagine, or our stereotypical view of what an underground society is like, it's these kind of people.
Oh yeah, oh for sure. And I like the choices in clothing because you do understand immediately who's supposed to be what.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, the undercover cop's clothing, you immediately feel like he is a gross snake of a person.
Yeah, he's a dirtbag.
He feels Weasley, and his clothes match that tone.
Mm-hmm.
Xander's clothes, when he's not wearing the coat, all feel very, like, badass. He's got a very much, like, ready for action. He puts the coat on. He gets this weird lamb lion vibe. Kind of soft, kind of cuddly, little derpy.
I don't see that at all. I see it more as, like, kind of a stereotypical rock star or rap star, as we've seen.
The coat... The reason I tie it there is because the coat manages to become its own little character throughout the 3 movies. Mm-hmm. And by the 3rd movie, it's like almost a gag, like, I can't leave my coat.
Okay, and this is... it's like the Indiana Jones hat.
It's exactly like the Indiana Jones hat, where, like, in the first movie, was the coat meant to, like, represent him and his gold heart? Not really. It was a cool coat. But by the 3rd movie, it's like, no, this is me and my humanity, my coat, my homie. It gets its own spot in the credits.
Okay. That makes more sense. And that's me previously speaking out of ignorance of the rest of the film.
I mean, I wouldn't call it ignorance. The 3rd movie's, it's a garbage fire.
I know the 3rd movie exists, and I've seen trailers.
It stars one of my other all-time favorite action stars, and that is Ruby Rose, who plays a very similar role to her Meg role.
See, and the weird thing for me going into these movies is because everything around them, I know the actors from all the weird obscure stuff they've done, like when Paul Walker died.
Yes.
I didn't know he was in Fast and Furious. I knew him from the Lazarus Project.
Yes.
That is what I knew him from.
Yes. This world is very much a, like, small circle of action characters, and so knowing who's in it, you know what sort of character they're going to play, you know.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know, I like that. I appreciate the trope.
I get it. Yeah. And so they try infiltrating the underground group, or the whatever they're called. They've
got a name, not gonna lie, worst bad guy name ever. I think it's Anarchy 99 or some nonsense like that. It's a terrible bad guy name. I'm just gonna call them the Gang.
Sure.
It's a bad guy name.
Yeah.
It's really forgettable.
Yeah. And so they try going into their club, their bar, nightclub thing.
They've got like a bar that's always run by bad guys. It's full of bad guys. No cops allowed. Sort of punk vibes. It's, it's exactly what you think it is. I like though that
but also high end at the same time. Like it's a club that not everyone goes to.
No, it is definitely a selective club. You have to know somebody to get in, sort of club, probably.
Yeah. And so while they're in there, the cop's like, oh, play it cool. We'll talk to them. We'll try and buy cars. And Xander just, what's up?
Yeah.
America! Ha, American!
Again, it's a trope movie, and I like that they lean into the I'm an American, I'm here to buy cars trope, because, it works.
And on top of that, they're immediately suspicious of him.
As Americans, we do stick out a little bit in Prague. In an underground bad guy bar.
Underground bad guy bar, I would say Depends on how you grew up, because my family, when we were overseas a lot, we got mistaken for Germans.
Yeah.
Because we didn't dress like the stereotypical Americans.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. But so they're in there, and Xander proves his worth by saying, that guy over there is a cop. He's been flashing his badge at the bar all day.
Yes.
And then they're like, how do we know you're not cop? And so the head dude's brother steps in, and he's like, no, this is Xander Cage. He's a badass. I love him.
Because I watch his YouTube videos.
Turns out that guy, the big blonde buff dude,
the very much bouncer looking guy.
He won 13th in jiu-jitsu for the Olympics.
Wow, look at him go.
Yeah.
Those are real muscles. Nice.
And they're big guys.
I mean,
they make Vin Diesel look small.
Which is saying something, because Vin Diesel he's already a big guy, and this guy, like, dwarfs this man.
Okay,
It might be camera angles.
I don't think Vin Diesel's tall, but he's a bulky guy.
And he's not a short guy either.
No.
He's no Kevin Hart.
What was it? I was watching some British TV show, and Kevin Hart took a picture outside some English bakery. They were doing some promotion for a movie he was in, and he looks like he's short. He looks like a high schooler at and I'm at this bakery.
And poor Kevin Hart. He's stacked up against tall actors who are all tall. So yeah, I make fun of him, but I'm no better. I am also short. So
yeah,
but
Vin Diesel is 6 foot tall.
Yes, he is. There are actors in the action world who are tall. Mm-hmm. That's kind of a thing. So
they're not all Tom Cruise.
They're not all Tom Cruise. Definitely not all Tom Cruise. But so is he the tallest one? Oh goodness, no. There's definitely others who would dwarf him. But this bouncer and bodyguard character, partially because of where he stands throughout the entire scenes he's in, partially because he is a gigantic human, just kind of I don't know, he was almost like a caricature of a person in the film, because he sticks out a lot compared to everyone else. The bright blonde hair, which is all buzz cut, the really over the top muscles, which are way over the top compared to even the over the top muscles.
He reminds me of the Russian dude in Rocky.
Yeah, he does. He does.
Yeah. So yeah. Anywho, Xander breaks in, infiltrates the society.
This is his way in. He knows cars. He's gonna be cool. He's got a YouTube channel. It's all good.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And one other thing I want to say about the club, it is a ruined cistern, which is hella cool.
It is.
I am sorry, if I ever owned a club, that is the kind of thing I would love to do, or it would just be some hole-in-the-wall pub that people stumble upon. Something like that.
That would be fantastic.
But yeah, so Xander wakes up the next morning.
As you do.
And he gets a call from
Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah, from Samuel L. Jackson. And interesting thing about this scene is he pulls open this super advanced flip phone.
Oh, I love future technology. At the beginning, when Samuel L. Jackson's character is showing off the secret U.S. base thing, and his hand is scanned from 5 feet away from the door, and it's flashing retina scan, face scan, hand scan, all of this nonsense sort of technology that nowadays we're that's what you choose, that's your go-to. That's silly.
Well,
but I like it.
It could have been a lot worse.
It could have been a lot worse.
No, it was almost a lot worse. In case you didn't know, the detonator used for the Band-Aid bombs.
Oh, I love Band-Aid bombs.
The detonator was originally the communicator. And it was delivered the day they were shooting, and they're like, what are we gonna do?
Yeah. That would have been hilarious. No, instead he has what is somewhere between an iPhone and... there was an old flip phone that did that.
Yeah, it's one of the old side flip phones with a keyboard in it.
Yeah, and then they've been oh look, it's fancy, it has FaceTime. It's got Skype on it.
For 2002, that was impressive.
I know.
We couldn't have conference calls over our computers in 2002.
Oh, I know, but that's why I love it.
AOL was still the main email.
Hey, AOL is now... AOL, now is your time, AOL. Make a comeback. This is your prime spot in life right now.
When I was in college, we paired up in groups, and I was paired up with... and this was my first year in Lincoln, so I didn't know anyone. So I was there with a girl and a Chinese student. And we were exchanging emails, and she gave us our email, and it was an AOL email. And Shu Dean turns to her and he's like, what's AOL?
Oh. AOL, I miss you.
I
mean, I also don't. I wasted way too much of my life and time on that, but nowadays,
no.
It would be fun.
Oh, God.
I could go back to my terrible tag names.
Anywho, enough of slowly becoming middle-aged rants.
Yes.
So we also learn in this that the government is kind of shit at what they're trying to do.
Apparently they're not very good spies.
They're not good spies, they don't know cars.
They don't do their research.
And Xander is the one who came up with the car list because the one they gave him was garbage. He said they were boring, they would know exactly what I was trying to do from the get-go.
Yeah, they were asking for like minivans and stuff. Boring.
To be fair, minivans are kind of dope now.
There are some. There are some that have some fancy bells and whistles.
Oh yeah, or like the Scooby-Doo machine that drives around here every now and then.
I haven't seen that in a while. I hope he's okay.
Yeah. Anywho, so the exchange goes on just fine.
Yep.
And Xander's brought to HQ because they're sending in help, where we're introduced to the Q of the series, which I like.
This character is purposefully infuriating, and it's kind of a fun thing.
I like him, though, comparatively to the other Q-like characters we've been exposed to.
He's a nice... he's very different.
Well, okay, so generically, the Q characters are always inventors.
Yes.
Q is a desk jockey.
Always.
He's a fucking nerd.
Yep.
The monk from Van Helsing.
A very good example.
He is reluctantly dragged into everything he's doing. He's a nerd, but he doesn't want to do field work. Yes. This one, he's tired of doing the desk work. He likes doing the desk work, but he doesn't want to do that forever.
Which I think is part of the reason why this character feels very refreshing and his own character. Because you know what his role is. Mm-hmm. He's the Q character.
Yeah.
But the fact that he doesn't want to be the Q character is a very nice touch. Because you don't get that very often.
Yeah, no, and I don't know. I think I like his addition to the movie, honestly.
I do too. He's just like everyone in this, as with all action movies, everyone's an asshole to some extent. This kid is I wish I was a cool asshole, and I like that character because it just kind of feels like a fun punching bag for other characters.
Yeah, and he is kind of a punching bag from the get-go because he's like, oh, cool, you're awesome. How long have you been doing this? 2 days. And he's just so...
He's so mad.
Not mad, just hurt.
Yeah, well, yeah. Fair. I mean, but also, let's take a visual comparison here.
Yeah. And so we're introduced to the gadgets, we're introduced to the Band-Aid bombs, the gun that has, like, the different rounds, and we get the little bit of, like, this is my pride and joy, this is my trank dart.
Yes.
It'll knock you out. And he's like, yeah, I know, I've been on the other side of it.
Yes. My favorite gadget is definitely the binoculars, because the binoculars can see through things. And they originally use it to look through a lady's skin. And it's weird. I like it because it leads you to believe that it will be used for one circumstance. It's going to be used like X-ray for a person. Yeah. And then in the end, they use it in a much more practical sense to see through walls. And
they're gentlemen about it. They don't go through the bra and panties.
No, for some reason, this woman is wearing lead bra and panties.
To preserve that rating system. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it really falls under that horny 13-year-old dreams.
And like all of the gadgets in this movie are also like dumb 13-year-old gadgets, which is purposeful, and that's why they work. Because if they were overly smart or overly creative, then you weirdly step into like potential future problems. See-through goggles, not ever gonna be too much of a problem. It's always gonna be funny. It's always gonna be like, oh, that's a spy gadget. Dun dun dun.
Yeah, and so Xander goes to meet up with them.
Yep.
One thing I do appreciate about this movie is specifically the use of foreign languages.
Yes,
And
it's very natural.
It's very natural, and I think we are seeing a shift in our acceptance of foreign language in films, because this one has a little bit scattered throughout. And about a year ago when I was rewatching Inglourious Bastards,
Yes.
I was because it had been probably 8 years since I'd seen it, and I was rewatching it, and I'm like, oh, this movie has a lot more foreign language than I thought.
Yeah.
And it just makes it feel more integrated rather than a British or an American person trying to fake a foreign language.
And like, I don't know, it makes the set feel real. It makes it feel like they are in Prague.
And I think we're becoming more adjusted as a society to people speaking foreign languages.
Yeah, no, I've seen an influx of movies where there is a foreign language in there, and there's not a need to subtitle it across the bottom.
Yeah.
You just need to accept that you don't understand what they're saying.
Well, in some movies that's done to a point, but in a lot of movies brought to the U.S., they're still subtitled,
Which is also fine.
It's fine too, because that's the main demographic speaks English. But I think, especially our generation and the weebs we grew up with,
Yes.
we grew up watching subbed animes and subbed movies.
Oh, it was the worst.
So we became
real good at reading with one eyeball.
I'm fine with subs. I got really used to it. And one thing I will say, if anyone who hasn't really started anyone who is hesitant to watch movies with subtitles, start off slow.
Yeah.
Watch something like Pan's Labyrinth or just a drama period piece.
Yes.
That's a good way to start, because most of the time the language is slow enough and the subtitles are slow enough to read them.
And usually the dialect isn't, and the words being picked aren't so
abstract.
Yeah. Like, they're not trying to portray a meaning that doesn't nicely translate.
Yeah.
Which is something I do like about action films, especially if you're like us and you have an interest in at least picking up other languages here or there.
Mm-hmm.
Action films are a fun way to do that, because some things won't get subtitled. They're being said too fast, or they're by someone in the background.
Yeah.
Most of the dialogue is something very straightforward, like, I'm going to kill you. Which, translates real nicely. And you can pick up on multiple words because they'll be the same, couple sentences throughout the whole movie.
Yeah, exactly. And I it's interesting too, because I know a decent amount of German, and I know a handful of words in Japanese, enough to know sentence structures are drastically different.
Sure.
And so I don't know. I think it's an interesting thing, especially to see in these early 2000 movies of this start of a transition. Which another sort of a transition too is Cohen, when he was thinking about this movie. If I remember right, he only saw Vin Diesel as the main guy.
I mean,
fair. But he also thought Vin Diesel was perfect because he was this ambiguous ethnistic character or person.
Yeah, or he could fit a lot of tropes.
Yeah, exactly. He looks kind of white, but he's not pasty white like me.
He fits into a lot of scenes really nicely without a ton of background knowledge being needed to explain him.
Exactly. And he's just a badass to begin with.
He is very much a badass.
So, anywho, we're brought into that, they found the cars for him real quick. They're worried that he's not gonna pay. Which, fair. Yeah.
I would also be worried.
Yeah, they got some, as far as I know, super fancy cars.
Yes.
What is it? GTO is the one that he picked out for himself.
Yes.
Which I have... The weeb in me when they said GTO was Grand Teacher or Great Teacher on a Suzuki. I know nothing about cars. I know you and Erica and actually... Everyone besides Crystal and I love cars in our friend group.
Brian appreciates new cars. These are the cars that I love. These are the cars that I appreciate.
There's a level of craft to old muscle cars.
And with the exception of his GTO, all of the cars in the background were very nicely thought out by someone, because they are all European cars, I think.
On top of that, Cohen mentioned that they got permission to use these cars. And there were bodyguards.
Oh, yeah, no.
Just watching them of like, you do not touch this car.
Some of these cars, like, there's only a handful left ever. Mm-hmm. And so, like, yeah, it it doesn't make a big difference for probably the average person watching this, but this movie is targeted to us who are into this sort of like nonsense.
Exactly. It's like Fast and the Furious and Gone in 60 Seconds.
Yeah, no, I'm here for the cars. And like,
yeah.
This was they were nice touches. I am sad that like that's part of this movie. This is XXX. It's not Fast and the Furious. So while the cars are cool in this movie and we do get some cool stunts with them and we do get to see them, we don't get to spend the whole movie with them.
Yeah, which is fine because
fair. That's not what this movie is.
No, it's not Fast and the Furious.
Yes, it's a close relative, but I like that they bothered to like make a full distinction. It would have been easy to have the cars in more scenes, especially since they already had them on set. You might as well get your money's worth out of them. But by holding back on them and just having them as part of the story, as a part, as unlike Fast and Furious, where they're almost a character themselves,
yeah,
it does make this movie stand out from that a little more.
Mm-hmm. And so, while they're looking at the cars, admiring them,
this is, okay, architecture peeve 101. That's not how windows work. So the dumb sleazy weasel cop comes and is going to rub some dirt off a window so he can see what's inside, and the whole framing, an entire storefront worth of windows just comes crashing down.
The mullions and the glazing,
all of it, which means that they were held up by some snot and some Elmer's glue, which is not an approved construction equipment.
This is Eastern Europe, so
yeah, okay, so maybe it is approved construction equipment.
Questionable.
Yeah, but like. Yeah, the whole thing comes toppling down, which... How? I have questions. But
like we said, we will have a whole episode at some point of us just bitching about architecture.
We will, and this will be part of that bitch. Because this is one of the... this is the biggest window fail I've seen on movies in a very long time. However, it does make a really cool shot. Having all of the glass come down, and it is enough of a, big thing to set up the events of the next chase scene.
Yeah.
Because if it had just been I heard a pebble outside, let's go get him, it would have felt a little unnecessary.
I heard the craw crow 3 times.
Yeah?
Crow
okay?
cog.
You okay over there?
I'm fine. I am very fine. But yeah, so cops on the run. They're very suspicious of each other. Cop gets a 2-minute head start because they're pointing their guns at each other. Do you know him? I don't know him. I don't know him. Do you know him?
I do like that they do take time to have this exchange instead of just jumping into the chase scene. Because it does lead to the kind of twist ending at the end where oh, he knew the whole time sort of thing. Which, it's not much of a twist, but they tried.
Okay, I don't think it's so much of a twist. I think this is where he starts airing his suspicions.
Oh, for sure. If you
it's
watch
just a bit too convenient.
It is. But I also like that they bother to have this exchange, and then they bother to end the exchange. Because if they hadn't, pretty much the rest of the movie would have been weird.
Yeah, and then the cop would get away. But at this point, this is where Xander really gets deep in. He and, I just remember the dude's name, Yorgi.
Yeah, that's his name.
He and Yorgi hop in the car with, what's her name? Starts with a Y.
Elena.
Elena?
I think so.
Elena?
Elena? Yena?
I don't know.
I don't know.
But anyway, they all hop in the car together, and they're gonna go chase the guy down. And this is where Diesel proves himself, because he knows if any of the other people get a shot off, they're gonna kill the cop.
Yeah.
And he uses his first Bond device.
Got them fake bullets that make it look like he's dead.
Gives him a tranq round that has a blood splatter.
Fancy.
And he falls on the glass, which the glass wasn't supposed to break when he fell on it.
Oh. One of the only times the glass wasn't supposed to break.
And when it did, they had that, the whole crew had the sudden oh shit moment. Their buttholes clenched real quick.
Ah, yes.
But yeah, and so, Xander is now one of them.
He's made it in.
Yolanda gives him a disparaging look.
Yes.
And then they quickly go to another club.
Yes!
Where we got, it's not club, it's, I'm trying to think of the genre of music. it's like an industrial house music.
Yes, it is.
And they're going at it. They're having a good time. And he's like, "You're one of us now."
You know, whole "you're one of us" ceremony, food, drinks, dancing, ladies.
Ladies, which,
scantily clad ladies.
you talk about non-iconic costumes.
Yes.
Yelena's dress is very iconic.
It angered me because I couldn't figure out if it was her dress that she, like, was wearing as a, like, she was wearing a shirt as a dress and, like, just didn't leave her boobs out, or if, like, that was what the dress was supposed to look like. I had friends growing up who were very deep in the punk set, and this dress read as, like, early 2000s punk to me, but, like, without all the accessories and the wrong shoes on.
Yeah.
And so, like, in my head, I kept trying to place this dress and, like, how it was probably supposed to have been originally designed. And I never quite got to it, which was kind of fun, because it does give you something to watch. Because this is... Oh, hi!
Yes. It does give you something to watch.
Because if you're watching this as a 13-year-old boy mindset, this is kind of the slow part of the movie. There's a lot of dialogue. We get some cool boobs. We get some butt shaking. But
exactly. It's slow, but there's tits and ass all over the place.
Which is keeping you focused.
Exactly.
Yes. I, again, have one final architecture complaint. If you have a 4-poster bed with giant posts, please make sure that there is, like, actual support running through it, because if you dance on it like this woman did, you will break your bed and die.
There's a little bit before this. There is a little bit before that scene. And so, basically, Yorgi says, "Oh, you're one of us. You can have whoever you want," basically.
Yep.
Very misogynistic, but it's
fitting.
It's fitting.
It's fitting. That's what type of club this is meant to be.
Exactly. And so they go, he and Yelena start kind of flirting / not.
It's meant to be flirting. It's like action movie flirting, where everyone just insults each other until they fall in love. It's
very, molesty.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Beastmaster.
Yeah.
It's very much that kind of romance.
Again, written for a 13-year-old boy.
Which has caused a lot of other issues.
It has. But
that'll
be a different movie.
That's another movie. And so they go back to this great house / palace where they allude that, just the owners never showed up again.
Yeah, totally, to their mansion in Prague.
Yeah, never showed up again.
In their romantic Renaissance mansion in Prague. They just, I don't know.
And we're also kind of seeing the mentality of these people, because they were taking these beautiful vases and artifacts and bowling with them.
Yes, and
creepy guy with the coat.
Oh yeah, there's that one too. Yeah, they're just, it's very much meant to show that, like, they're supposed to have that, like, real, like, rebellious punk-esque sort of vibe to them without having any actual basis in punk itself. But it does make for a...
I will say it's more of... It's borderline crust punk.
It is borderline crust punk, for sure.
But it's more like anarchy punk rather than, like, UK or American punk.
Yes, definitely. And I don't know. It's a nice visual. It doesn't.
It's fine.
It's fine.
And so Xander tries hitting on Yolanda again, and she's like, "Oh, this isn't gonna happen."
Yeah, no.
Put it back in your pants, please. And they all go off to bed, and Xander goes into his room, and he has a little gift for him.
He has a random dancing woman on his bed frame, along with 1 billion candles. Who lit these candles? Why are there so many candles? This is a fire hazard.
Romance.
Did she have to light all those candles? I hope
I
not.
would probably assume so, since she was the gift as well.
He's just sitting there with little matches. 1, 3.
By the way, when I said there was one scene I only knew this movie from...
Is this it? Yeah.
It's this scene.
Yeah.
I watched it and I'm like...
I mean...
It's midnight, my brothers are sleeping next to me, I'm moving on.
Yeah, this isn't one I want to get caught watching.
Exactly.
Fair.
Yeah.
Fair. With a name like XXX, fair.
Well, at the same time, I didn't know that was that movie until, like, I was probably a junior
Oh
in high
yeah,
school.
no, it's very much aware of what it was doing.
Oh yeah, exactly. Very beautiful lady, though.
Yes.
So Xander wakes up in the morning, and he goes to spy on stuff. This is some cool shooting here, too.
Yeah, definitely.
I love this part in the commentary with Cohen, because he's talking about how he always tries using 2 or 3 cameras at any time, so that way he can get whatever angle he wants. He also said that he was inspired by Kurosawa.
Yeah.
He called him his genius, his mentor, and his spirit guide.
Ah, okay, alright.
We have to do an episode on Kurosawa at some point.
We
will do
will.
a spotlight on Kurosawa.
Definitely.
Yeah, but anywho, so Xander goes in, kind of doing a shitty job spying, honestly.
Yeah, he's so far not a great spy.
And Yolanda comes in, and there's a cool part here too, because the floor is checkered.
Yes.
And she walks, and the way she does her movement, I think he said it was the knight's move.
Oh, nice.
Chess. It's the little cool things here and there that they put in there.
Yep.
And we realize that, oh, she's a spy as well.
Yes. Didn't see that one coming whatsoever.
Never. Not that disapproving look and her hesitance towards everything they do.
Yes. Also, the fact she's the only one that we've actually talked to.
Yeah.
You know, must be a spy.
Yeah. And so they go out for dinner or breakfast. Breakfast.
They're calling it breakfast. It probably looks like lunchtime. I also question how they got let into that fancy restaurant in the clothes they're wearing. I have been turned down on many a scope trip from eating at a fancy restaurant because I was in my scope clothes. They are in their kick button clothes, and everyone around them is wearing like suit and a tie and a nice dress.
Well,
I'm assuming that they know who she is and don't want this like snot beat out of them, but like couldn't put on your coat for this.
She's got to wear that that outfit.
And you know, Xander can't wear sleeves. It's against his religion.
I don't think I've ever seen a movie with Vin Diesel wearing sleeves.
If I worked out that much, I also wouldn't wear sleeves.
I don't think his arms can fit into sleeves.
Fair. That's a possibility.
And so at this time, we're also exposed to the fact that
they know.
Yorgi knows that
he's
Xander's a spy.
Because, you know, he wasn't a very good spy.
No.
He wasn't very sneaky.
No, he's not. And that's what's great about it.
But that's kind of the point of him, though. Is He's not a sneaky spy.
And he calls Yelena up, and he's like, hey, he's a spy. And the oh shit moment on her face.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he's just said, what if I can get you out of here?
Yeah, he's offering her an out, which I like, because this does...
Again, he cares.
Yeah, and then on top of that, it builds up her motivation more than just like, oh, he's hot, I'm gonna, like, ditch this for him. Like, if that had been the circumstances. I'm
gonna go XXX on him. But yeah, and so... I don't know. It leads into a very, very generic sniper scene.
Yeah, it's kind of a boring action scene.
By the way, that sniper rifle has an accuracy of 2 miles.
Ooh, fancy.
And so, I don't know. I was sitting there and I was watching it, and I was thinking that very much the stereotypes in romance movies and action films are comparatively considered less complex than horror films.
Oh, sure.
Or they're in the same genre of, like, they get lumped in together. And this is a very pseudo-romantic scene.
Yeah, I mean, nice dinner, fancy place, offering a way out other than just, I'm cute, you're cute, we should get together.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, they're attempting to build something here.
It's not a cheesy Bond scene where he seduces her by giving her the look.
Yeah, I will say that is probably one of the things that this movie does do better spy-wise than Bond is there is, at least for the majority of Bonds, this has a little bit more complexity to both characters.
There's also probably less of an age gap.
There is definitely less of an age gap, which, oh, Bond, are you okay?
That was the funnest game I played watching those movies was...
Guess the age gap?
Guess the age gap.
Oh, it's never a good game, but it's always fun.
Yeah. But anywho, so Diesel knocks her out. He pulls a William Shatner and punches her in the face to knock her out.
Yep, that way she's not suspected. And then also, I don't know, just he...
Grabs a serving tray and proceeds to grind down a rail, which Cohen said Tony Hawk talked to him later and mentioned that that's not how you do a rail slide, and you can't do a rail slide like that.
Yeah, this is probably the least best of the action scenes. It's not a great action scene. It's mostly just a lot of running.
It's
kind of a boring action scene, but...
It's fine.
It's fine. We can't have all explosions, otherwise Prague would just not be there.
Yep. And so, Diesel is kidnapped.
Yep.
But he's kidnapped by Murica.
Murica got him. Told him go home.
Because he blew his cover.
Yep, now he's useless. But in kind of the whole spirit of not just this movie, but all of the XXX that it slowly becomes, the whole, like, this is where it truly, like, leans into the whole, I'm telling you to go home, wink wink, nudge nudge, you're gonna go home, right? I'm giving you an order, you better do it.
Don't you dare knock that off the shelf.
Yeah, that's kind of this whole franchise, to be straightforward.
Yeah.
And this is kind of where it leans into it the first time, which I like. Because, especially once you get to the third one where there's an entire troop of them who all do the same thing.
Well,
this is a good, like, the beginning.
Well, and it's also further establishing, his heart of gold again.
Yeah, he cares. He doesn't want her to get murdered.
Not necessarily that he cares, but also his word is important to him. He's promised her that if she works with him, he can get her out.
Yeah.
And he's going to do it. Which... fun little bit here. Mm-hmm. When they do a cut to the overall seating, there is a Red X.
Oh yeah, there is. It's a good touch. There is a lot of details in this movie. Mm-hmm. You know, if you bother to look.
Yeah, exactly. And so now he's going to infiltrate the lab. He's broken his orders. He's not a spy.
He's a rogue.
He's a rogue agent.
Rogue agent. And on top of that, he's pretty much just told his new almost girlfriend that she needs to go into the most dangerous part of this cult gang. Because she mentions to her that, like, oh, you need to get down there. And she's like, I'm not even allowed down there.
No, he hasn't told her. He didn't tell her to do that. God, Yorgi.
Oh, yeah.
Yorgi says, if you come down here, you're all in.
Yeah.
There's no turning back from here. And this scene is where I think Yorgi turns out to be, we learn how sociopathic he is.
This is the spot where he moves from just being into, like, the whole anarchy movement and into, like, oh, you a little crazy, too.
You are a Bond villain.
Yeah, he moves on to full Bond villain mode.
I just realized how poor our scheduling is.
Yeah.
We have another Bond-like movie coming up.
Yeah. You know, it's okay.
It's fine. It's fine. And so Diesel breaks in, and we also... like, he's not out there to really kill people either.
No, yeah.
I don't think he actually kills anyone in any of these scenes. At the end, he does, but at this part, he's not.
Yeah.
And so he gets in there, and we learn what Yorgi is trying to do.
He's going to poison the world.
From some
weird chemical
boat thing that's going to go around the Earth, and then it'll submerge, and no one will know where the missiles are coming from.
Yeah, not gonna lie, I kind of zoned out when he was explaining his evil bad guy plot.
No, that's the plot, is he's going to basically incite World War III with chemical weapons that this thing is going to launch even though it skates across the surface, and it's going to submerge and no one's going to know where it's coming from.
Yeah, I was a little distracted at this part of the movie, even though I've watched it now 3 times this week. I still didn't really quite understand how he planned to get the boat everywhere. Didn't quite catch all.
GPS.
GPS? Is that the new fancy technology in 2002? Is GPS? I don't know.
Hey, we got to the moon with a calculator.
Fair. This is fair. So, he's got a bad guy scheme.
Yeah.
It involves world domination.
He's got all the brilliant minds there.
Yes. And I do like that they bother to solidify his evil, because they could have left him as just like, I'm gonna do the world domination thing. Ah ha ha. But no, he bothers to kill all of the
scientists involved.
And
he's
with their own device.
Yeah, he's leaving no trace behind.
Yeah. So, and on top of that, he doesn't just bad action movie person stereotype like, oh, I'm gonna kill you, and walks away. He sits in a glass box and watches their death.
He and his lackeys watch them die while Yelena is sitting there watching, trying not to react.
Yes. Doing her best.
Also, at the same time, Vin Diesel gets in. Oh, before all this, he's used the Band-Aid bombs. That's what I like about this movie, is because there was a handful of Bond movies I watched, and they explain, oh, here's this gadget, here's this gadget, here's this gadget.
Yeah, there's a lot of gadgets that he just kind of doesn't use.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what's the point of explaining this?
Why do you have such a cool watch if you don't use your watch?
They go through 3 gadgets.
Yep. They cover all the gadgets.
Yeah. So he's put his Band-Aid bombs on all the cars, and he actually uses the binoculars for what they're used for.
Not looking at underwear.
No.
Yeah, not looking at ladies' bones. He's looking through walls.
Them bones.
Them bones. I will say that I do kind of wish... This is one of the parts where I kind of wish cinematographically we had done more to make it look more X-ray-y. Because it does look very crystal clear, like he's just looking through a wall, which is cool. Yeah. I like the concept. Doesn't quite read on DVD rewatching it as like cool Bond gadget. It just kind of reads as like Superman looking through a wall, which is fine. Yeah. But like,
it's not how X-ray works, but it's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine.
It's not how Band-Aids work either, so it's fine.
To be fair, it's Band-Aids with explosives on the bottom of them.
I can't get a Band-Aid to stick to my own skin, and that's what they're designed for. So like, how's it gonna stick to all them cars?
I would use actual Band-Aid and not any of the
I
brands.
Am cheap, and I want them to have cats on them.
Go with Band-Aid.
They don't have cats. They have the little tiny cats.
But anywho, so Xander knows what's going on, and so he decides to get out of there, get the information out.
Yep.
And
he's actually going to do spy things this time.
Yep. And then the government shows up. Or no, the government hasn't shown up just yet.
Not just yet.
Nope. He gets out, he blows up all the cars, the judo guy
does a really cool jump scene where...
It's his first kill.
Yeah. This one he actually does die.
Yeah.
Granted, there's an argument that Xander didn't mean to kill him. He was just on the bike that blew up. But like, he still blew up a bike.
Sounds like the excuse some of our operations have used.
Yeah.
It's collateral.
It's collateral, which... Yeah, but the actual jump scene, really cool. I like the motorcycle jump and then the explosion and like the contrast between Xander's face and pushing the button. And,
because
our bad guy. Because
we really haven't had the typical triple X scene or the X Games scene.
Yeah, no, this is the close as we get really to like BMX da da da.
Yeah, since the cocaine plantation.
Yeah, this is, we're back into our bread and butter here.
Yeah. And so Xander decides that he gets back to the back to his hotel or back to his hideout, and Weaselly Oily Cop is there.
God, I hate this guy.
And he is dressed much nicer.
Yes,
Still tacky.
And still oily, which I like. I like that they, that's part of him as a character, is he's just always a little bit needing a shower.
It's like Wormtail from Harry Potter.
Yeah, always a little bit in need of a shower.
Just a little bit.
All the time. Just, you need a stronger shampoo.
Always sweaty.
Always sweaty.
And so, Yelena comes in, kills him because otherwise he's going to kill Xander.
Yep.
And we get more of her backstory, that she was basically forgotten by her special services,
which is very sad.
It is.
Oh, left to die spy.
Left behind, not unlike the Nicolas Cage movie.
Yeah, I guess there's some parallels there.
And so Xander decides, hey, we have to take this a different approach.
Yep.
And he says to get in there, we're going to have to take out this communication tower.
Yep.
Which...
This is... Mwah. It's so dumb.
It's so dumb. It's so cheesy. But at the same time, it's great.
Yeah, no, it's again, another rip on a classic trope of action films, which is out snowboarding or out skiing an avalanche.
He's somehow going to infiltrate and blow up this tower with his by going in by snowboard. Dropping from a plane.
Parachutes into snowboard.
Parachutes into snowboard. I love this little touch.
Mm-hmm.
The parachute deploys.
Yep.
American flag.
Yeah, no, yeah. It's very
much making fun of James Bond.
Oh, it really, really is. And then on top of that, by the time this movie, hit its force, there wasn't a single person watching this who went, wow, that's so cool, and thought to themselves, yeah, totally believable. At this point in the action film industry, everyone knows that you cannot actually do this with an avalanche. You will just be run over and die. You can't out snowboard an avalanche. Especially not this much of an avalanche.
Exactly. That's why they tell you to try and swim over it.
Yeah.
Like, try and get above it and swim.
But instead, we get probably the only time where the multi-angle cut together action bit kind of hits a little odd is instead of swimming over it, he manages to get all the way to the tower, jumps onto the top of the radio tower, and just holds on and hopes for the best. This is the jump that kind of I know what they were trying to do. It just reads a little bit weird, and I think it reads weird because it's in the daytime. It's a really bright scene, and there's no, explosions to, distract you while the camera cuts. It's all just snow. This
is the one scene I would say that has aged the worst.
It has. Even compared to the bad technology.
At the time, it was really advanced. They really pushed particle effects.
It still looks good. I've seen worse.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely the part of the movie that you have the most pause at.
Yeah. And I don't know. It's just one of those weird things. The one thing I do appreciate about, especially the soundtrack for this movie, is Coen was talking about he didn't want this. Normally in these scenes, we have that big orchestral moment.
Yes.
And instead he used I Will Be Heard by Hatebreed.
Yes.
Which...
It works.
It works.
It's
very fitting. He's not the kind of spy that has an orchestral soundtrack behind him constantly.
Yeah, no. The music for this, I don't know. The music for this movie actually was really good. Granted, I don't think too much was composed specifically for this movie. I think there might be a couple background tracks here or there.
Oh no, it was all composed for the movie. It's an original soundtrack.
Minus the songs that get added.
Yeah. Minus Rammstein and Hatebreed.
Yeah. Well, no, there's a couple others in the clubs and things that are playing. All of those are pretty big bands. But somehow this soundtrack managed to be on a couple of top 10s when it came out.
Huh.
Yeah. I don't know. I've been listening to it in the car. It's not bad. I wouldn't say it's my favorite jam. I prefer the songs that were added to the movie, but it's not the worst music. Also not the best. There's others.
I was in Germany at the time, so...
I will say there is one specific song that was written that when it started playing... It's at the beginning of the movie. It starts playing, and it happens to be eerily similar to Riders of Rohan from Lord of the Rings. And Brian and I had to pause the movie, rewind the movie, and then play the two together and be like, oh yeah, this is Lord of the Rings. Cool.
Close enough.
It's pretty close.
I mean, any music nowadays is close to something else.
This is true. It just unfortunately is close to a incredibly rememberable song.
Yeah. But, anywho, so they just, after Xander blows up the communication tower, disables it, they proceed to storm the base.
Yep. Just going right in there. We're gonna get them.
And there's an interesting part to this, too. So... Xander and Yelena get assault rifles.
Mm-hmm.
And they go around the corner, and Xander almost gets killed.
Yep.
And Yelena shoots up the guy.
Yes.
And tells him, make sure your safety's off.
Yes.
Which is an interesting scene, and Cohen points it out that not many male stars would be bossed around by a woman.
Yeah.
Especially at this time.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know, it's kind of interesting because we have... I don't know.
I like the scene because it puts her on more of a playing field than just like the cute boobs.
Yeah, she's almost a level. She is a level higher than him. She is an actual trained operative, and even though he's done like his quote unquote field training,
his field training was being dropped in Colombia for an afternoon.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he is a rank amateur compared to her.
Yeah. I also like, too, that it gives her a chance to prove that she can take action. Because up until this part in the movie, all of her actions have been her controlling herself to not let herself be caught or discovered. And so now she can just fire her gun whenever she so feels like it. And she's going to take that chance. She's just as much a spy as he is.
Yeah. Or she's more of a spy than she.
Yeah,
that's what that's what this proves, is that she's more of a spy than he is.
Yeah. But I also like that after this scene, he doesn't then continue as a character, that is, doesn't continue on with like, I knew that, or like to dismiss it in any way. Dismiss, which was a weird combination of dismiss.
Diminish and dismiss.
Yes, those two words together. Because honestly, when that sort of dialogue happens, which it happens a lot in action films, it just kind of makes the male character feel icky.
Misogynistic.
Like, yeah, and like, just like, oh, well, you were cool, and now you're kind of more of a, But by just being like, oh, okay, cool, I will remember to put the thing down from now on so that I can fire my tootin' rootin' gun.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Yeah.
It's a good scene. Mwah.
And so, they're storming the area, or the palace. They're winning, except there's a sniper up in the pipes.
It's the sniper.
It's the sniper who's a smoker.
Yes.
Yurgi also goes to release what's the ship's name? The Nautilus?
No, it's called the Ahab.
Ahab. And so he's going to release the Ahab while he's defending it.
Yeah.
And this part it reminds me of a Kung Fu Master named Cat Piss, where that movie starts off with, I learned everything from watching movies. This is very much I learned everything from playing video games.
Yeah.
He uses a rocket launcher,
a heat-seeking missile,
which he doesn't know how to prime, but he knows how to shoot because of Grand Theft Auto.
Yes, and he also knows that this one cigarette in this man's mouth is enough heat for this thing to lock on and target.
An entire room filled with steam pipes.
And people. And theoretically, this giant disaster ship thing that I'm assuming runs on some type of engine. It doesn't just go.
It runs off of pure energy from the anarchy.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Anarchy energy.
But
sounds like a shitty energy drink.
Yeah, it does. But I don't know. The heat-seeking missile scene, dumb, but it's over really quick, so I can kind of forgive it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just kind of there, and then we kind of forget that there was ever a missile here.
Yeah, and then the Ahab gets launched. And
away we go in our cool car.
That's the other thing I like about this, too, is at the end of the movie, Yorgi isn't really the quote-unquote bad guy. Or, I mean, he's a bad guy, but he's not the final boss, let's say that.
Sure.
He gets killed by Vin Diesel.
Yeah, we saw coming.
Yeah, and he's almost crushed. But now they have to go and stop this thing. And he wants... way before this, we glossed over the fact that he makes the Q guy soup out the car.
Yeah, so we get a souped out car, and then on top of that, the Q guy finally gets his wish. For one day, at least, he will be an agent on the field.
Not just an agent, he's in charge of the cleanup.
Which I'm sure went so smoothly. Probably not a single problem with a brand new guy doing this.
Brand new field guy. Yeah.
He'll be fine.
And on top of that, I love the car because it's so stupidly decked out.
Well, and on top of that, all of the gadgets that she's reading off in this terrible handbook that she can't read because he didn't bother to type it, he wrote it by hand and bound it together. When did he have the time?
Yep.
But all of the gadgets in it are so over-the-top spy Bond-style gadgets. Flamethrowers, rocket launchers, the spikes that come out of the hubcaps and the wheels, the roof comes off, ejector seats, whole 9 yards.
Missiles to blow up potato carts.
I felt bad for the potato cart guy. He's already having a bad day.
He made me think of the cabbage guy from Avatar.
We also yelled, "My cabbages!"
But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, he comes in, he stops the device right at the last minute.
Right at the second. It goes under with him. He's probably dead.
He gets thrown off.
Yeah.
Well, actually, there's actually an interesting part of this too, which they set up when he's infiltrating the base, where Yorgi explains how the devices work, which Diesel hears, and that's how he dismantles it.
Yeah. Its one weakness, water.
There is actually something important about the scene too. When he's paragliding in.
Yes.
The stuntman.
Yeah.
Died.
Okay. Yeah.
They actually have you don't see him die, but like right before he smacks into the bridge, he broke his neck and died.
Yeah. So the stuntman who played all of Vin Diesel's stunts in this movie was called Harry O'Connor, and this was the scene that he dies in. This was their second take of this particular stunt. So the version you see in the main movie is not the scene that he dies in. They cut the one that they were going to redo it. And so the part where you see him make it all the way through.
He doesn't make it all the way through. If you pay close attention, I don't think they took it in 2 takes is the thing. Is the take that they have of him is they just cut it right before he would have hit the bridge.
Yeah, so unfortunately, extreme stunts cause extreme deaths in this case.
And Cohen said he was actually really affected by this because he was a friend and it was really felt through the crew, and he just, the thing is with the stunt crew, he said he knew what he was getting into and they knew that this was a potential risk, and it just unfortunately happened to be the only casualty. So one dude broke a few ribs, but other than that,
I mean,
rather uneventful filming.
Which is impressive for the crazy stunts they pulled in this film.
Sad, but still.
Yeah.
And so we also think potentially Vin Diesel's character is dead at this point.
Yep.
But surprise, he is alive.
He's not dead.
They did also mention that the water was 38 degrees.
Very cold.
And they had to get him out as soon as possible. And Yelena gets back to Cabo is where they go?
They go to Bora Bora.
Bora Bora.
They go to Bora Bora. She's, I don't know, somehow the promise that this one random kind of spy makes about her being able to come to America and be a citizen. I don't know, we're just gonna, check that right off that box. No problems, no paperwork there. Welcome to Bora Bora.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, it's a good ending to an action scene or an action movie, because it does leave enough to be like, oh, there's definitely going to be more. They hint at what the second one's entire premise is, which is the group.
And Samuel L. Jackson pops in saying, "I know you're there.
Yeah,
please pick up." Well, the one thing
it's exactly what you expect.
Yeah, the one thing I like about it too is at the start of this movie, it's very much a fish out of water scene.
Yeah.
And by the end of it, him going back into the ocean he's fully immersed in this world.
Yeah.
He's coming back to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's this weird part of compelling action movies. Mm-hmm. It makes me think of kind of like Die Hard.
Yeah.
Where Die Hard is an action movie, but it has heart to it.
Yeah. There's more. Exactly.
It's not just some generic kung fu fighting. Oh, terrorists have taken over.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just, it has that little bit of extra to it that why I can see why people quite like this movie.
This is one of those movies that, and this is true of a lot of these genres of movies, like action movies, like kung fu movies, where you can tell when the people who wrote it and directed it and starred in it we're also passionate about dumb action films.
Mm-hmm.
Because, yeah, it's still a dumb action film, but it's got enough passion and heart behind it that it gives, you can tell, you can see where that attention to detail was bothered to be brought in. You can see where they went all out on stunts and effort, and is it the most perfect action film ever to be created? No. But the fact that it bothered to have that heart anyway, knowing what it was going to be, that's good enough for a lot of us. That's all we want, is people to put effort and try.
Yeah, we want to feel that.
Yeah, and I think for XXX, especially the first one, that comes across really well.
Yeah, and I think that carries over to any genre in general.
It does.
Like, us as connoisseurs of horror films, we can tell when, like, granted, people do care about the films they make, especially the indie movies. But you can tell when it was rushed and it wasn't maybe their favorite. Yeah, exactly. So, Chris.
Yes.
At the end of it all.
Yep.
How would you rate this movie?
This movie's garbage and I love it. If you also like garbage and you were too young when XXX originally came out and you haven't seen it, yeah, give it a go. It is a really fun movie. The stunts in it are really cool. The cinematography is actually pretty good for what it is. The storytelling's exactly what you want. However, with that said, if you are not a 13-year-old boy at heart, don't bother. This movie, you won't like it. It will just be torture on yourself.
Yeah.
It's a good group movie because there's enough dumb in this movie to laugh at. And they put it there on purpose. They knew that this was going to be like a group drinking friends night.
Yeah.
So if you have other people who are also into this is a good group. I would recommend binge watching all three if you're doing a group because they do progressively get dumber. Not great. Dumber as in, like, the plot gets dumber. I mean, the plot does get dumber. But they add more people to the plots to help it also feel more cheesy.
Vin Diesel's not just the poster child.
No. I think Ice Cube's in the next one. So
yeah, I think he's, like, State of the Union is the next one.
Yeah, it is.
And the third one's Return of Xander Cage.
Yes. The third one is my favorite. But, yeah, if this is your genre, I recommend binge watching all three. The first one is just as good as you remember. If you didn't watch it, definitely give it a go. But if action movies are not your thing, if they are not your normal cup of tea, there are better examples of the genre out there.
Die Hard.
Die Hard. The first Fast and Furious. I mean, it's still in the same branch. It's still in the same breath. It's just done a little bit more polished.
Okay. As for me, I do recommend this as kind of a starter action movie.
Yeah.
Or a start of a modern action movie. Because despite some of the parts being a bit cringy and a bit
it's
socially unacceptable nowadays.
Yeah, it's a victim of what it was.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's progressive in certain areas. So
yeah, no, it definitely made leaps.
I think this movie is definitely worth at least a once over.
Yeah.
I like you said, it would be better as a group night. But I do like how Robert Cohen put it, is he wanted to make a high octane entertainment film with a little bit of heart.
Which he definitely succeeded in.
I completely agree with that. I think that that little bit extra is what made this movie and why I don't completely dislike it.
Fair.
Like, it's not that I don't dislike it, it's just...
It's not everyone's favorite thing.
No, it's fun for a side little study of action film, I would say.
Fair.
So.
Fair.
Yeah. Anywho, this has been The Good, the Bad, and the Weird.
Thanks for listening.
Peace.